how can brands keep customers at the center of everything around generative AI?
Changing workflows. How does this change in the workflow improve the customer experience? And I want
How can generative AI support the customer experience process and workflows, right? Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another LinkedIn Live. This topic today is going to be brand interactions with AI powered CX. Really excited for this conversation. We're coming up into the retail Black Friday, Cyber Monday, coming into one of the biggest, if not the biggest, shopping experiences across the world. Really excited for this panel today, where we're going to be sharing about how CX and generative AI can help power brands and put customers right back to the cornerstone center from a lot of retail and a lot of businesses. So let's get started. I want to kick off the panel, make introductions, introduce everybody. Vin, we'll start with you, man.
Hi, I'm Vin Vashishta. I'm the founder of V Squared. We're one of the oldest and smallest data science consulting companies on earth. We wrote the book From Data to Profit. It's the blueprint for AI strategy, product strategy, and monetization for the enterprise.
Hi, I'm Kristen Kerr. I've been a data scientist since 2010 in the utilities, healthcare, and then I spent 6 years in e-commerce. Now I am the founder of Data Moves Me, where I build cool projects with deep learning and AI to help other brands evangelize their products, their AI products.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeannie Walters. I am founder and CEO of Experience Investigators, where we focus on customer experience strategy to create fewer ruined days for customers.
Very nice. I'm this panel absolutely the best. Vin and Kirsten has been here before. For everybody new, my name's Chris Ortega. I'm the CEO of Fresh FP&A, and we provide fractional CFO and advisory services to high growth businesses. And yeah, like first question I really want to get into on this one to get right into the meat to it. And Vin, we're going to start with you on this question, right? How can brands keep customers at the center of everything around generative AI, but also leveraging generative AI at the same time? Like, how can they still balance that customer centricity also with leveraging the technologies?
Well, I think it's important to realize that AI shouldn't do everything. So, opportunity discovery is absolutely critical. But when you talk about discovering opportunities, you bring the C suite into it. And we need an AI literate C suite. But we also
Mm.
need business literate data teams. If we don't have both sides of the equation, we can't succeed. The other problem is we think about AI as a scalpel, not a broadsword. It really is a scalpel. When you look at it as a broadsword, you're basically looking at costs scaling faster than returns. When you use it in a precise, really targeted way, your returns are exponential. That's the great thing about AI is it can actually live up to the hype. And the best thing to remember really to keep customers at the center is just engage with partners, simplify the technology so that your business can focus on creating and delivering value to customers and delivering those great experiences that align with your brand. And when the technology sort of moves off to the side, you don't feel the pressure to put AI everywhere, it helps. It's a big deal.
Nice. Kirsten, what do you think?
Yeah, Vin, I loved the term you used, discovering opportunity. And I think that that's really what it is. And to frame it differently, I think about it as avoiding shiny object syndrome, because in reality,
Ooh.
we have been leveraging models in business for a couple decades now, and that might have looked different. You were using a logistic regression model, but the idea was, or the idea is it's not new. Wanting to apply a model to a problem in business and then sometimes getting derailed and working on items that are not the highest value. So it really goes back to looking at what is the ROI of the different initiatives? What are the actual blockers for our customers in our business? and going through the funnel. Are we getting enough customers to the site? And then looking at the funnel and saying, okay, at each increment, because generative AI is going to be able to help us in all sorts of different areas, but it's about identifying the problem first and then tailoring an AI solution to that, rather than saying, okay, this cool new technique has come out, how do we shove that into our business? And so, yeah, I think, you're able to both identify what are our needs and find a cool use case that's going to be able to help you solve that problem.
Well, and I'd just add that I think a similar thing happens when we're talking about AI in general and even customer experience in general, because sometimes we talk about it as if it's this like magic fairy dust that we can just put over everything. And we talk about customer experience that same way. We say things like, well, just create a great customer experience for everybody. It's so obvious, right? And I think in order to keep the customer at the center of everything you do, you have to start with a customer experience strategy. You have to figure out, what is the experience you're trying to deliver? Where are those gaps in the experience now? And then apply, what would we want to happen, and figure out how generative AI can actually help you do that, because there are so many ways, both behind the scenes and for the customer, that it can support you. But similar to what you both said, we need to stop treating this like it's just this big kind of cloud that we put over everything. We need to think about, what is the actual thing we're trying to do, and make sure that we're starting with that customer experience.
Jenny, and I was sitting here taking notes, and I was just like, I love the avoid shiny object syndrome, right? And I think so many times the customer needs to be the center of everything when it comes to the experience, right? We had conversations about this before, where we talked about, like, the first place you go to is generative AI, then you kind of have that output. I think customer experience, you need to start with the people first, right? Like, Kristen, you said this perfectly, right? Like, you got to identify the problem. You've got to intimately know the customer, right? Like, you got to know that first before you can even think about leveraging any generative AI to develop strategy, to develop tactics, to develop metrics or execution plans, right? Like, if you don't intimately know the customer's pain, their frustrations, their opportunities, what motivates them, it doesn't matter. You can have the best generative AI tool out there. It's not going to be able to do it. So having that human-centered focus and that perspective first, and then leveraging the tools, that's really, and I think I love that point that we all talked about, which kind of leads to my next question, right? And we'll kick this off with Kristen first, right? How can AI help in ways that humans are involved, both employees and customers, feel better connected and value to brands, right? Like, how do we make sure we keep employees connected and customers connected to that brand and that overall customer experience?
Yeah, so just like we were talking about, where the customers have to be the center, like, you need to get those customers on the phone. Yes, we're using AI and automation, and it's making it so that we feel like maybe we need less man hours to deal with them. We still need to be talking to them. And, hopefully we're leveraging personalization well, so that these people don't feel like they're just a number. But then it becomes, well, what's next, right? And we want that interconnectedness of the data, so that if somebody does something on a site and then we get them on the phone, things start to feel seamless. And there's always going to be more work that we can do to try and optimize this at each piece of the funnel, right? Because there's your onboarding, there's your returns and exchanges, there's so many different areas we could do this. But it's also not just the customers too. We need to involve the employees. And I was at a company where they used to send employees to actually go speak with customers, because the customers were small micro businesses, right? And I'd get so excited because it was an opportunity to actually go and do something different other than playing at my computer for the day. But it has so many far-reaching benefits, right? We really need to be upping our user research efforts and really understanding what those pain points are, because we can guess and we can make up all the stories in the world, and we look at this data and we do infer things, but really sometimes when you talk to customers, you find that it actually doesn't align with how they're feeling and what they feel their needs are. So it's really, making sure that we're getting on the phone with customers, and that benefits both the customers and the employees as well, and upping those user research efforts.
Well, you think about how we have been trained as business people to think, and it's very much inside our organization. It's about process, it's about systems. Sometimes I call it customer journey by org chart, where we say, oh, you're in marketing right now, you're in sales, but the customer is experiencing something very, very different. And so we do have to constantly flip the lens and make sure we're looking at things from that customer's perspective. And one of the things that I think we all kind of learned the hard way during the last few years, when there's a supply chain disruption, that impacts customer experience in a huge, huge way. But those supply chain folks weren't talking to the customer experience people, and the data was not connected. And so they had no visibility. This new world of generative AI, we can have those data points talk to each other in real time and be presented to the right employee in the right moment, or the right customer at the right moment, so that the customer then doesn't see something that's out of stock or understands what the limitations are before they order. So it's all kind of coming together in a really powerful way. But again, we have to think about, what do we want as an organization, and what do our customers want, and where is that Venn diagram? And that's where we focus on really applying these tools.
Yeah, those are all great points. And I think a lot of it comes down to, we forget that AI is a product and it has to integrate into products. And especially with generative AI, it isn't the product for the majority of businesses, especially when it comes to customer experiences. So when I'm teaching AI product design, you have to have this sort of human machine alignment. And if we're not designing AI products with people, again, going back to people at the center, it doesn't make any sense. As our models become more advanced, they must also become more reliable. And reliability isn't just this concept of accuracy. Reliability is alignment. It's aligned with the people who use them and people who rely on them to create and deliver value for customers, or those customers who are expecting a great customer experience. Something that I posted a little while ago got over 4 million views, and it was a picture where a CEO was stepping over all the early maturity steps to get straight to generative AI. And, it was a technology-centric post, but in reality, if you don't do that upfront work, you're also stepping over your customers, you're stepping over your employees. It's not a place that you just show up one day, like there's no AI transporter. You have to put in the work. And part of that work is starting with that design, building for people, for the user experience, and adopting new paradigms to do that.
Hey, and sorry guys, I cut off for a little bit. Internet issues, things going on in my house, but I caught up the tailwind of that. And I think my only insight to add, and I'm pretty sure everybody covered this on the panel, is that it kind of gets back to what Kristen said. And I think one of the most important points is like that human connection side of it, right? Like generative AI is such a technology adoption where it's just like it's not really personalized, it's not really connected to people, right? It's like we're leveraging this massive amount of data that we can use to actually personalize, right?
Mhm.
When customer experience, even looking at it from the finance organization, right? Because we have a lot of customer experience that we need to have as well too, right? Like making sure that we take those initial first steps of connection, right? Connecting to the people, to the customers, understanding those pains, and intimately knowing that customer first, right? That's where I think technology can help us scale and help us move forward in terms of that overall customer experience. Because right now, I think there's a battle to get people's eyes and attention, right? Like that's the biggest battle right now. Every brand is like, how can we keep people's attention for 30 to 60 seconds and deliver an effective message as clear as concise and as effective as possible? Like that is like the biggest challenge for a lot of brands right now, because that attention span is like, if you don't get me, if you don't understand me, if you don't know, like, sometimes, and I'm probably say this, like sometimes I get emails like for asking me for like, hey Chris, do you want to buy 15% off women's socks? I'm like, sure, but like that's not really personalized towards me, right? Like, no
Limited
discredit
stock.
to women's socks, and I may be interested for my mom and my sister, but like that doesn't really like drive me to buy, right? So as we can directly connect with that intimacy of that customer, that's the game changing aspect of it. So I think talking about this topic, and continuing on the customer experience, I want to lead to my next question, which is, how can generative AI support the customer experience process and workflows, right? We talked about a lot about how to be in the center. We talked a lot about how we keep the humans, keep people, customers, employees involved. How can generative AI help some of those specific CX workflows and processes? And Jenny, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, customer experience is happening whether you're focused on workflow or not. Like, that's something I think we sometimes forget. But, your customers are having an experience at every step along their journey with your brand. And it's also their choice to continue on that journey when they're actually, moving forward. And so we sometimes act like this is a very linear process. We can just paint the picture and they march through the journey. But really, we have to think about what is it that we have to do on the inside of our organizations in order to deliver that customer experience. So, generative AI allows us to really connect dots for the customer on behalf of them in ways that we haven't been able to before. So, we talked about how, customers have told us again and again, they want to be recognized for who they are. They want to be seen and heard for where they are on the journey. Meaning that if I've had a chat with a bot on your site and then I call customer service, I want them to know exactly what I just said in that chat. And so,
Ooh.
one of the things that I think we forget is that the people that we call, it's not their fault. They don't have the right information at their fingertips. Now, these tools, we can think about what is it that we can put in front of the folks who are serving customers. So, for example, in a contact center, you might have somebody right now who has to find the perfect search term to find the right answer for a customer. Even though they're on the phone with their customer, they're talking to them. They don't have all that information unless they can find it the right way. Now, with natural language processing and AI, they might be able to ask it exactly like the customer asked it and get not only the information for how to answer that, but also who is this customer? What have they purchased in the past? What should I know about them? And all of that is just such a more personalized, meaningful way to serve a customer. So, really looking for those points along the journey that we can tweak the workflow just a little to provide the people who are serving customers the right information in the right moment in the right way so that they can do a better job with the customer experience.
Very nice, very nice. Vin, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, I think it's, back to the marketing side of this. You say we want to grab their attention and put the perfect message in front of them. We want to engage them, and experience is happening all the time. What it really boils down to is every company wants this sort of addictive product, this thing that people can't get away from, this marketing that goes viral. Uh, what's different about generative AI, and especially the interfaces and agents, they're habit forming. And there's a difference here.
Ooh.
The addiction is, you're doing this for some irrational reasons. Your customers are sort of almost cult like, but that's not what you really want, because there's no alignment there with customer needs. Habits are better aligned because they're actions people choose to adopt intentionally. They see the benefits of it. And that's really experience, is that alignment. And with generative AI agents and interfaces, I've been part of some really early trials, and there's a really just consistent theme of generative AI products are habit forming. And if we do the design component right, again, putting that person, putting the user, putting the customer at the center, putting their needs at the center and creating an alignment, but also designing so that we don't put friction in front of all of these different products that we're rolling out with generative AI, you create habit forming experiences. And it is really choose your spots where you have an AI enabled experience and it wasn't possible with other technologies. Those are the highest returning opportunities. So look for places where you couldn't serve your customer in the past that now when you look at AI, you say, whoa, wait a minute, we can do something here. Those are, again, back to that broadsword versus the scalpel approach. Those are the targeted areas where you create a competitive advantage because you're delivering experiences. You're delivering in ways that other companies can't. Your competitors will be behind you. And look at pragmatic implementations. Really be guided by what is being delivered, not the hype that's being promised, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in it. But, stay grounded. Look at things like Copilot. SAP's got Joule. There's tons of these examples that are out there, and you'll see more and more rolling out where we are going to be capable of delivering experiences in a completely new way. So avoid the hype, think a little bit simpler, but look for those opportunities to deliver value in brand new ways, but ways that are aligned with customer needs, ways that are habit forming versus addictive.
Nice. I love that. Habit forming solutions like that. I think for marketers and like salespeople, they're like, how can we create more habit forming for our users, right? Kristen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, and I absolutely love what you said, Vin. Competitive advantage through customer experience in a new way. And
Ooh.
and it is a new way, but it's the same problem we've already had, right? Like this is an up level. 10 years ago, we were still doing retention models where we'd understand who was the highest risk and we'd want to reach out to those people at the right time. Like we've always been trying to solve for how can we improve our workflows and processes to try and address the right problems at the right time. And again, it goes back to, doing the full analysis and understanding in your your onboarding process, in your return and exchanges, in your order processing, where are these opportunities that we have where we can make the customer experience more seamless, where we can remove potentially human interaction that's not necessary, but really deliver a tailored, personalized experience. And then figuring out, when we look at this, what are our highest needs at that time, and then inserting the solution to solve the problem rather than the other way around.
Yeah, and I love that point, right? And I think it's all about like creating like a seamless, and this is where I like my biggest, and I want to get into the next question, right? And this will kick it off. I think of use cases for generative AI in the customer experience, right? And I want the panel to be thinking about that. I think one of the biggest use cases that can enable sales, marketing, CX professionals is around that data side, right? And Kristen, you kind of talked about this a little bit, right? You talked about this in a sense of, hey, how can we like maybe the team, right? We're really involved with, we're keeping the customers at the center. We're involving our employees and customers through, focus groups. We're doing all the right things, but maybe they're not as data savvy, right? Or maybe they're not as analytical savvy, right? And now you're just like, how can we have generative AI be able to take a lot of this data that we're getting from customers, from surveys, from emails, from NPS scores, all this data, and now how can we leverage generative AI to produce models or recommendations or strategies or tactics that we can implement? Like that's where I can see like a great complementary use case that generative AI can have for CX professionals is that we know the customer, we're keeping them at the center, but we're not as savvy, we're not as data centric, we're not in like, super snazzy and like using SAP Joule as Vin mentioned. But this is where that can complement that piece of it. So it's actually like you're bringing horsepower to your team that maybe the team doesn't have, right? That's a great way of leveraging it. And Jenny, I want to get back to you on this one. What are some of those like great use cases from all the listeners and the viewers that are going to look back and play through this? What are some of those use cases that you've seen generative AI plus CX being successful for CX or CX teams or CX employees?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many, right? That's part of the challenge. But the other challenge that I see a lot of organizations have is that they have so much data that it takes a lot to turn that data into actual insights that they can act on.
Mm.
And the power of AI is that you can do that in, record time, and you can apply it to the micro level, to that individual customer. So for example, instead of just saying to like right now, if you board a plane and you are a million miler for something, one of the flight attendants might know that because they were told in advance. They have to go over to your seat, they have to find you, they say, hey, we really appreciate you being a million miler. But it's very dependent on somebody actually taking the initiative with that insight to do something about it. With AI now, and with thinking about how we can filter through all of that data and identify that one individual customer, we can also then prompt the specific employee in real time, or we can actually provide something in their digital experience as they're booking their flight. We can connect all of these dots so that they feel very special. They feel like they're getting that very personalized experience that we all crave.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's really the fact that we are connecting data in a more powerful way. So I would encourage everybody to think about, where are those points where you are really dependent on the right employee doing the right thing? And how could you leverage data if you could have that visibility in the right moment of the journey, either for the customer or for the employee, or just kind of in general? How could you actually do that? That's a great way to think about it.
Mhm.
Love it. Finding that right moment to have the biggest impact.
Mhm.
Love it. Kristen, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I mine would have been the same. The interconnectedness of the data is the biggest thing that I think is going to really make a difference in the customer experience. And Jeannie's example was for really being able to like delight the customer. But we also
Mm.
see, you call your mortgage company and you tried to set up auto pay, maybe you miss a payment, you call up and they've got a hold on your account, you have to call back the next day, and then again you're like, "Hey, I just want to set up auto pay and I'm all paid up." And they're like, "No, now you got to call again 2 days later." Like really being able to streamline those flows and have all the data available so that you're able to correct, or assist people with what it is that they're trying to do in real time rather than having them call back 2 days later. And I think that that's going to solve a lot of pain for a lot of people.
Nice. Nice. Vin, what are your thoughts? Some
When I
great
look at
use
the
cases.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I look at the open, sort of open field of opportunity, what comes down to at least what stands out to me is the ability to focus on workflows and changing workflows. How does this change in the workflow improve the customer experience? And I want some sort of evidence of that or some theory of that before we start the initiative. And I think that's important when we're doing opportunity discovery, when we're doing use case selection. We should look at that granular level. And that's sort of the high level theme that brings all of these different use cases together, is we're talking about making a change in the customer workflow. And by making that change, the customer is going to have a better experience. They're going to be more delighted with interacting with the brand. Because when you think about it, brand's really the way you feel when you leave every interaction with the business. And if you can use data, if you can use AI to improve those workflows, customers leave more satisfied. And that's the point of experience. That's really the point of data. Again, putting people and customers at the center. That's where you can see significant gains from data and from AI.
Yeah, yeah, and I think for me, like one of those use cases, and Kristen talked about this, right? I think is like we always talk about how we make such a delightful experience, right? But we've all had customer experience. I mean, I'm not gonna even say the customer experience I just had, but it was dealing with a very large bank, and I'm like, why should I be going through all of this? Like, I think part of the customer experience should be like, when I need you to be responsive, I need you to be reactive, and I need you to get things done for me, right? Like that's a great experience, right? Versus like, I think, Kristen, to your point, and like the experience I just had from a customer experience perspective, it took me literally, I'm like, why do I have to come into a bank? I haven't came into a bank in like a decade. Like, I'm like, why do I have to do this in a bank like that? Ain't no form you can send me. And they're like, yeah, we got to send you a form, but you got to hard copy it. You got to like wet, like on wet ink. I'm like, what do you send it through DocuSign? Like, what are you talking about? Right. So I think so much of the customer experience is being highlighted towards how do we make it such a great, like wonderful experience, but there's so much win that you can have to just say, hey, how do we not make this painful for people when they need us, right? How do we incorporate to be proactive? How do we give them resources that they need? How do we quickly get things done for them, right? So I think that's the other side of it, more of like the pessimistic view of it, probably taking the finance side of this, right? Like the pessimistic side.
Well, I'll just add to that, Chris, because when we talk about, customer experience, we are talking about every single interaction that a customer has with your brand and then how they feel about it. What is their perception? And going back to what I said in the very beginning, like we often look at the inside of our organizations, the bank that you bring up, like their processes probably look like they're working, right? Because they're forcing people like you to come in and give them that signature. So they're like, well, it's working on their end, and they don't see it as it's really a pain for the customer. And the other part of that is that we often think about this as reactive. We are reacting when things go wrong. Customer service is really about when things go wrong. And what we should be doing is looking very intentionally at the customer journey, being very proactive about it, fixing those things before they become problems for the customer. So it's a whole big world out there. And the mission of my company is to create fewer ruined days for customers, because I really believe that if we do that, we make a better world, right? Like people are happier. They don't have to call their bank 5 times in a row. That all matters in the world. So I totally agree.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Hey, so round robin question, crystal ball time, crystal ball panel. We're going to go into it. So looking at this crystal ball, right? Looking at that magic 8 ball, when you think about AI and the customer experience for the next 15 years, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What's that emotion? Then we'll kick it off with you, brother.
Yeah, I think every time somebody asks me a 10, 15-year question about AI, I have to explain to them, if I told you what will happen in 10 to 15 years, you wouldn't believe me. It really is that pace of change. I think that's what's important. Look at this as happening faster than you expect it to and moving forward in bigger leaps than you think it will. Because there is all of this opportunity with AI to, number one, gather data about your customers in new ways. Devices, sensors are going to give us access to customer data, and we have to be aligned. If we don't align with the customer, we are going to lose their trust. And when you talk about customer experience, we don't often talk about the ethical side of data gathering. We don't talk about data privacy. It's sort of off limits area, but you can ruin the customer experience by being overly invasive or by using data in ways that does not align with your customer's intent. So I think one of the biggest barriers companies will see to getting to that really futuristic vision is governance. We have to start using data in a way that aligns with users and the way users want us to deliver experiences to them. So I'll set up for everybody by saying the hard thing and then let everybody else say the futuristic stuff, because my futuristic stuff, you probably wouldn't believe me.
Nice. Kristen, what are your thoughts?
Same as Vin, 15 years is so long in the data space. And if I look at, the type of work I was doing 13 years ago to what I'm doing now, it's absolutely mind blowing how much easier processes have become, how much easier it is to work with some of these tools, because there's just like things that I had to do manually. There's now libraries for, and it's been amazing. But trying to look out 15 years is so impossible. However, I completely expect with AI for the customer experience to feel more human with less human interaction. And a lot of that is going to be through really nailing personalized recommendations, and the interconnectedness of the data across diverse touch points, really improving the customer experience.
Awesome. Great insight, Kristen. Jenny, close us out. Crystal ball, what does it look like?
So I think part of this is really understanding. I mean, you look at just what's happened in the last few weeks with the custom chats that are being developed, and people are playing in that playground now. I think that the entire customer experience on both B2C and B2B will look completely different. And that's because right now, we as customers often make the choice. We go to a specific brand site, we search for a specific thing. That's going to be flipped. And we're going to have the power to just say, I have this really weird, corner in my yard. What weed thing should I use for it? And it will be served up to us on a silver platter. And it will be less about where we buy it from, and it will be more about providing that individual, very specific value along the way. So I think we all have to get a lot smarter about how we're providing value to the customer today, because that will connect to what's happening in the future. Chris really likes that answer.
Yeah, most definitely.
He looks delighted.
I was sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, centralized, and like I was sitting here taking those data governance, right? Looking at that, getting that intimate customer experience, knowing that customer, meeting them where they are. These are great insights. And I want to thank all the viewers, thank all for LinkedIn Live. I appreciate everybody dealing with my technical difficulties on this one. But I wanted to do a round robin, and then we'll start with you. If people wanted to learn more about you, connect with you, learn more about what you're doing, where can they follow you? Where can they connect with you?
Easiest place to find everything is datascience.vin. And thank you to the French wine industry for naming a domain after me.
Ooh, so you want to lie? Let's go.
Yeah.
Kristen, if people want to know about you as well too, like where can they follow you, learn more about what you're doing and what you got going on?
Yeah, everything I do is on LinkedIn, and that's my central hub. So if you follow me there, that'll be everything.
Awesome. Jenny?
All right. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, or experienceinvestigators.com. And if you want to ask me a question, I have a podcast, Experience Action, where I literally answer voicemails all day. So that's askjeannie.vip.
Very nice. Asking, like, getting voicemails. I'm pretty sure you got some interesting voicemails. Definitely right around the holiday season right now. I'm pretty sure that's going to be
usually
interesting.
They're customer experience based, just to be clear.
Good. Well, I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much for this panel and this tremendous conversation. I took so many notes and so many insights. Thank you for all the viewers. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy and your insights. And make sure to join us on the next LinkedIn Live. And enjoy the rest of your day and keep it fresh.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.